All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our last panel of the day, and this is Navigating Common Challenges Adoption Organizations Face. We've got three great panelists today, and I'm going to give their names and titles, and then we will start with some of the challenges that they have identified as ones that they're going to talk about, and we'll kind of just go down the line. We have Danielle Montgomery. She's the program administrator for Turning for Home, which is the park space program, correct? And then we have Anna Ford, Thoroughbred Program Director for New Vocations Racehorse Adoption Program, and Karen Gustin, Executive Director of the Kentucky Equine Adoption Center. So I'm going to start with Danielle. Can you talk about dealing with disgruntled adopters?
Yeah, something we all deal with, but nobody wants to say. Turning for Home, first of all, Turning for Home is the parks-based rehabilitation, retraining, rehoming organization, and really want to focus on retraining and rehoming. And that's how we deal with disgruntled adopters, because as we know, these horses are coming off the track, especially that first year of transition. The horses aren't going to be what they're going to be eventually. So that is why we're all here today, right? The Retired Racehorse Project, the big goal of this is to put horses that are coming right off the racetrack into the hands of good trainers that know them and understand them, can get them through those bumps on the roads, and hopefully get them to the right adopters. So Turning for Home, for the last 14 years, that's what we do. Instead of trying to move horses directly from the racetrack with all those pitfalls, we have 15 to 20 farms up and down the East Coast that we work with on a one-to-one basis with each horse, and we try to have those trainers do all the initial grunt work of the ulcers and the feet, and just figuring out what these horses can do, the major rehabilitation of it, and then try to match them up to the perfect adopter. And the perfect adopter, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. And kind of what I do as administrator is, most of the times if somebody has a problem with a horse, they just go back to the farm. They say, listen, it's not working out for whatever reason. Turning for Home's policy has always been and will always be able to take any horse back for any reason at any time. Just the closest farm, it takes us days or up to a month to get a horse back. And that's how you deal with it. If the horse is not working for you, bring them back. We'll try to find you one that will work for you. If we can't, maybe a thoroughbred's not a choice for you. Maybe we can find something else. But I don't disgruntled adopter, there's usually a reason. It's usually a disgruntled horse maybe. And our policy has always been, listen, we're just going to work with you. So the nitty gritty of it, we have good contracts. And so basically the way our farms work is, if you've had that horse for a month and he comes back in the same condition he left, bring him back. We'll refund all your money. It's not a problem. You do run into those adopters where, no horse works. And I say they're not library. I think Bev, maybe you told me that. They're not library books. You can't just take them out and just keep rotating them. It doesn't work like that. It's not fair to the farms, and it's certainly not fair to the horses. So, we have adoption applications, and I think more and more what I have done through Turning for Home over the years is people say, well, where are your horses posted online? We used to post them right when they came off the track, and we spent a lot of money on the website and getting them out right away. And we attracted all the crazies and good people too, not, but a lot of the crazies. Oh, wow, look at this American Pharaoh baby. People who had no education experience to have a horse right off the track. So nowadays, through Turning for Home, a lot of our adoptions are done privately. They're done right at the farms before, I have to even post them to help that horse along. There are some horses that are harder to place, and, we have to have a good combined effort between a lot of farms to find their place. But a lot of our horses, and this is why I am here every year for the Retired Racehorse Project, is that if we can identify and find those good trainers that don't mind taking a project for 1, 2, 3 years and give them that foundation, that basis for it, then when that horse gets adopted, you don't have disgruntled adopters. Because when the horse is done a year or two at the makeover, the horse is what the horse is going to be, and it's so much easier to place them. So I think that disgruntled adopters, it's not really that, it's disgruntled horses. And I think if we all work together and we identify the trainers and can give those horses a good foundation, then that's why all this works. Long answer to a short question.
Thank you. Anna, what about educating the equestrian community on common racetrack injuries?
This topic actually follows the last panel really, really well. So I'll just touch on a couple of things that, we've done and are trying to do. This is a topic that, in all honesty, every year we sit down with our whole team and do some strategic planning, and this topic comes up every single year. How can we continue to educate our adopters and the general public on the common racehorse injuries? And so some of the things, we haven't cracked the whole thing yet, yeah, I will say, but we have tried some different things to try to increase that education. We found that through marketing some of our success stories. So we get a lot of updates on our horses. We require updates. And so we'll look through those updates. And if we have horses really excelling at a high level that had an injury that everyone shies away from, whether it's a sesamoid injury, a repaired condylar fracture, or knee chips that had been removed, any of those common injuries, we will do kind of like a little bit of a post and campaign about, look, this horse is what he's doing now. This horse had a condylar fracture, just try to like put it out there as much as we can, showing the success stories. We know they're not all going to be able to be successful at that level. But when we have ones that beat the odds or that have those injuries where most people shy, and we've just seen over time, doing as many horses as we do every year, that more times than not, these horses are able to do more than what the vets say they can do. And so that's something that we kind of put out there, and that's something I think all groups, could do, kind of put it into their social media rotation. The other thing that we have played around with, and I think Jessica from Maryland had mentioned this too, is as far as descriptions go on our horses, sometimes we'll put out the full details, and then other times we'll put very vague. And when we do a vague detail on a description of a horse, we have found we do that on really complex situations, or situations where we feel like the people they're just going to overpass it because they see it and they already have a stereotype. But when our trainers do that, they also realize that they're going to then take on that responsibility of educating the people that are inquiring about the horse on that injury and what their experience has been. And so, as Jessica said, like a lot of the aftercare programs, we're doing that on a daily basis when you're talking to people about your experience in the injuries and stuff that we've seen. So we've played around with, for certain cases, we put everything. For other cases, we do more vague. And once somebody's interested in the horse, we do share all vet records that we have. And I know sometimes people say, oh, but you didn't put it on it's like, no, we don't put everything on the website, but when you're approved and you actually look like a match for this horse, we will disclose everything that we have on the horse. And we then tell them to share it with their veterinarians. We have what our vet says, their vet, just like Bev said, you have 10 vets, you have 10 different opinions. In reality, if anyone's had to deal with a personal health issue and you had 10 different doctors, you're going to 10 different opinions. So just a common thing, and that's something that, you often deal with. I have found on that part, though, with the differencing in opinions, if our vet's saying one thing and another vet's saying something else, that's the doctor's vet, we'll often ask them, say, hey, why don't you've got two opinions, go get a third opinion, and then make your decision based off of that. And sometimes that kind of helps them walk through it and see where they are. I think that's one of the biggest in this whole thing, is one of the side challenges is that all of our adopters, their veterinarians range in their experience of these injuries drastically. So, that's something that we're facing all the time. And it is hard. Like if your adopter's vet says absolutely no, you're probably not going to change that person's opinion. So you just kind of have to move along, find the doctor that has a vet that has experience with it. Another thing that we started doing is we have a one-page vet evaluation form that we consulted with all of our vets, and we probably have about 12 different veterinarians or more, and to try to document as much information that we have on the vet examination that the horse has when it comes in the program. And this was kind of, some vets are a little pushback on that. They might not want to put their name or sign off on something, but what we basically have is the horse's information, some basic information on its race record, prior health history of like information that we were given before, the health history while the horse has been with us, and then we have this suitability section at the bottom. And this was the part that was kind of hard for our vets, because no vet wants to, they don't have a crystal ball, they don't know. But we did create this form, and I'm happy to share it with anybody that would like it. And it basically says, based on the physical examination and the horse's previous information on this day, and it says yes or no to low-level exercise, the trail or pleasure riding several times a week, yes or no to low-level competition and disciplines such as dressage, hunter jumpers, pony club, eventing, up to 2 foot, yes or no to mid-level competition, dressage, hunter jumpers, pony club, eventing up to 3 foot disciplines, yes or no for upper level competition, no limitations. And then this disclaimer, which I feel like is what the vets really liked, that we put at the bottom. This form has been filled out by a licensed veterinarian. All information is based off of a basic physical exam unless stated otherwise. Future soundness of this horse cannot be guaranteed. Only suggested or recommended use of the horse can be noted, recognizing unknown prior injuries could exist, blah, 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 and then signed by the vet. So very simple. It takes, does take a little time for the vet to fill it out, but we have found by at least having this, and then we can give that to any adopters that are interested, that's just more information that they can have and help them while they're trying to make those decisions. So that's been helpful. And then last but not least, we've found that just like vets have different opinions on different injuries, if an adopter is working with a trainer, that trainer's bringing their own background and their own experience. And if they've had a bad experience with soft tissue, then they might say no. If they've had a bad experience with, certain repaired injuries, they might say no. And so you really have to it's hard because you're like, but we know this horse is perfect. Do your best to just give the information that you have, and then make sure they have everything that we know and can provide them, and then take it back to their team and consult. And if it doesn't work, that's fine, move on, there'll be more adopters. But I do think every conversation, every email that we have with adopters plays a role in educating them on these different common injuries.
Perfect, thank you. Karen, do you want to speak about ideas for placement of companion-only horses? And we've got some slides to show for.
Sure. So I'm the director at the Kentucky Equine Adoption Center. We're right here in Nicholasville, Kentucky. We have one facility, 72 acres, and about 50 horses at any given time. And we are an all-breed facility, so about half of what we have at any given time is always going to be thoroughbred because of where we're located. So I'll talk about thoroughbreds as far as companions and pasture pets are concerned. So I thought I'd start out by saying, interestingly, we place from our facility over 100 horses a year, and we always have probably 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 what we call companion horses who are non-rideable for whatever reason, but pasture sound and suitable as a companion to either a person, another horse, another animal, something like that. Those horses always stayed with us for quite a while. And when I say quite a while, I mean, a couple of years plus. And then COVID hit, and we cannot keep our companion horses. It is the weirdest thing, and I don't know if other people haven't experienced that. Yeah, no, that's okay. But there is this run on companion horses, and it's interesting to see. I don't know why that's happening, but it's a good thing because traditionally those horses were always harder to place and took longer to place because about 95% of our adopters want to ride and use the horse for some kind of riding. So we're always looking for ideas on how to market these horses and how to get the word out that even though they can't be ridden, they're still valuable and they still have a lot to offer people. So I thought I'd just talk really briefly about 2 different programs we have that 2 different horses were in and are in. And the first one is this lovely thoroughbred, Wendell's Shadow. He's a 2001 thoroughbred gelding. And we have a very small foster barn program here out of our facility. Our foster barn owners are within an hour of our center so that we can visit them. So Wendell went to a farm in Woodford County as a foster for many months, And he was surrendered by his owner surrender, because somebody in the family was allergic to horses. I've also found that about 50% of what you hear is really true. So for whatever reason, he ended up at the center. He was a lovely horse, and he very gentle, kind of a gentle giant, very easy to be around. So, but because of his age, he was going to be a little bit harder to place, and it was going to take a little bit longer. So we have a foster program, and this woman, Mary, is his foster owner, and they had him for about 8 months. And during the foster program, we assume all of the major expenses for the horse if they come up, but the foster barn owner takes care of all the daily expenses. So feed, farrier, that kind of thing. If there's any expensive surgeries or medical conditions, we'll pay for that. Well, interestingly, he has what's called EOTRH, and Stuart, you can probably say what all those little letters mean. But the first one is endo, and it's a major dental issue. And Wendell ended up having all of his incisors removed. And that's why his tongue is sticking out, because he can't hold it in anymore because he doesn't have any front teeth. Very successful surgery. He's very healthy. And the only limitation for a horse like him is you have to keep your grass a little bit longer so the horse can rip at the grass with their lips instead of their teeth, because they don't have any in the front. After about 8 or 9 months, we talked with that family, and they agreed to adopt Wendell. So one way to place your companion or your pasture pets is to offer a foster to adopt program. And it was you can go to the next slide. It was very successful for Wendell and for Mary, and he's just in the best place possible for him. So the next slide is Ellis Offspring. She is a 2009 Thoroughbred mare. We still have Ellis. She's been with us for quite a while. She was also an owner surrender, came from an owner who said that she had had laminitis in the past, suitable for extremely light riding. And her issue is that you can ride her, but she just doesn't stay sound enough, consistently enough to ride on a really regular basis. So, so with her, she has good ground manners until her timer runs out sometimes, but every horse has a timer, right? And we have a couple of education programs that we offer at the Equine Adoption Center. The first being the SASH program, Support a Special Horse. It's geared towards first-time horse owners or people who don't know much about horses but want to learn before they take the leap into either leasing or ownership. And she's in that program. She's getting a lot of groundwork, a lot of exposure to different people. And as I say to someone, if you touch a horse with a brush, you're helping getting that horse ready for adoption. So any contact that we have with our horses, provided it's positive, is a good thing for them, and it's exposing them to different people, different circumstances, and enables them to become more versatile as far as adoption goes. So she's in that program, and then we've also used her for another education program we have called Heads Up, Hearts Open, which is equine assisted learning. This is where she is. We offer our arena facility to outside organizations, and we also facilitate some of these clinics and workshops that center around equine assisted learning, using horses to teach team building, communication, self-awareness, that kind of thing. And again, she has the appropriate level of ground manners that someone who doesn't know anything about horses can come in and work with her, and that's all getting her ready for adoption. So she is in our current SASH program right now, and one of the participants in the SASH program is keenly interested in adopting her. So putting her in those programs, I think, has made her much, much more adoptable, and it works for all of the other horses that we call companion horses.
That's great, Karen. That sounds like it's good for both humans and horses, which is even better. I have to run to do our barrel racing championships briefing. So I'm going to turn it over to Jen to finish up the panel, and thank you guys, and I'll see everyone this weekend.
Thank you, and good luck with barrel racing. Let's go back to Danielle next, and about social media, and that has definitely changed how we market horses and present horses.
Yeah, well, we're still Facebook-based, but now we sell halters. No, I still think social media is the easiest way, because you're putting your horses out to that audience. We do spend a few hours every day with social media, and the benefit is we're sharing the good stories. We're doing like Anna says, you know, if you have a horse that's beat the odds, you know, maybe he has an injury and he's doing well, we try to publicize that. Because I'm right at the racetrack, we have a hard time dealing with the injuries, because if we put up a horse that has an injury, it goes right back to the PETA people saying, oh, well, if the horse wasn't racing, he wouldn't have the injury. My horse got hurt in a field last week because a balloon came across. Like, horses get hurt everywhere. So we have to be really careful, but anytime we do get a good opportunity to put that out on social media and let them know, like, look, whether war horses are easy, it's like, wow, look, he ran 100 times and look what he can do, no major injuries. But if we have something that we did surgery on, or like I said, just something that beat the odds, social media is great. Now we get into, you know, Twitter, and we get into everybody's changing their social media. So it is, I think, getting harder. People still don't want to pay. There's a lot of great apps out there. There's a lot of great ways to post. Sometimes, I know even with my farms, like I said, a lot of our adoptions are kind of in-house adoptions at the different farms, because they just don't have the time. We're working with horses where it's, you know how it is, you're all day long in the barn. So to actually get and put that time out into social media, I think it's gotten harder and harder. So is Facebook and Twitter is still a great place to get it out. I think with the 25,000 groups that we're all part of and sharing, it would be nice to have it more centralized. I think with COVID, we've all seen that reaction where, yeah, puppies and horses and everything's flying out the window. I'm still scared of the repercussions of this, because we have had a lot of adoptions in the last year. So I'm still kind of in that shell shock, like, okay, what's going to happen when, you know, the market drops? Like, where are we going to be? So still scared about that. But I think we've gone away from posting horses on the web as much. People go to our website and they're like, well, we're just going to kind of give you an application. And even somebody came to me, well, what horses do you have available? We've kind of turned it around. Instead of us putting out all our horses all the time, which again attracts all kinds of people, and we have to spend all that time sifting through them, we have been around long enough, people that, especially through these programs, if they're looking for a horse, they know Attorney for Home has off-track thoroughbreds. All of our farms up and down the East Coast, their individual groups know they have off-track thoroughbreds. And so I think probably we're moving away from social media for the final adoptions, and my farms that are doing better are the ones that have programs, like your programs. You get the horses to the people. My best farms have lesson programs with volunteers who come, because anytime you can have an attachment. And I think it's funny, like Anna was saying, you know, well, there's stereotypes and there's injuries that scare people off. And how many of us have seen somebody come to the barn for one horse that they fell in love with, the breeding online, and when they get there, they're like, that's not the horse for me, but this other horse in the barn, can I bring that one out, you know? And then you have an adoption. So that connection, that one-on-one connection, is where the adoptions happen. So the farms, you know, I think it's more about advertising your program, your farm, come see us, we have horses, more than just putting an individual horse out and saying, come look at this. Not that it's not fun. You put up, you know, a Jess's Dream or a Big Gray, you're going to get a lot of chatter, but most of that is just chatter. Those aren't really going to be your adopters. Your adopters are going to be the people that, you know, either they have horses and they have students coming up that they're looking for horses, or, you know, they're just repeat adopters. They've maybe put a horse to the program, they're ready for the next program. Those are most of our adopters. And like I said, with this program, in the last 3 years, October's been my craziest month for adoptions. Part of it is the fact that our stall apps come out, and we do get an influx of sounder horses this time of year, you know, as they're cutting their barns or stables, you know, kind of getting rid of the slower horses that maybe are not hurt. So part of it is we do get more horses coming in October, but overwhelmingly, when this show is over, we'll have people coming to us looking for the next RP makeover horse. So I'm not spending as much time, you know, posting horses. I'm more answering questions. I probably do more social media, interacting with my adopted horses, following up on those horses. We're stalkers, all of us. So basically, keeping in touch with and following our horses is probably where my social media goes. And that's kind of rewarding in itself, because if you can build a relationship with your people, and not just me, my farms, if you build a relationship with people and they know they can come back. A lot of my farms, like I said, they don't even do a lot of social media because they repeat adopters. I have another student, I need a horse, and a lot of my farms, they'll send out 3 or 4 horses at a time to a good trainer, and they'll work through them 2 or 3 weeks, and they'll be like, okay, well, these two they work for our program. Even if they have injuries, they might just, the mentality will fit, and then if they don't work, they come back. So I know a lot of people worry about trials, but I think we see a lot of horses go with our people within kind of our network, not maybe our partner farms, but that next group of trainers. So I think that's where it's changed. We don't so much try and put up horses anymore. We just try and attract a group of people. And yeah, it's crazy COVID. So many horses have gone out, and it's a good thing, but then you worry about what's going to happen later.
Sorry, my mic wasn't on. That was fantastic information. It's interesting how it sounds like you create your brand's voice on social media rather than doing the actual hard sales there, which is an important part of the overall like adoption process and sales process. Anna, can you tackle next dealing with horses that have more of an extensive injury or a longer term rehab?
Sure. So in line with that question, in general, since I think primarily an aftercare audience here, it's just been interesting in the last 10 years that since social media, that the type of horses that we're receiving has changed dramatically. We used to have maybe 70% sound, 30% have some type of injury that needed rehabbed. Now it's the opposite. It's 70% rehab, 30% sound. So it's becoming something that we've been tracking for at least 7 years now and seeing, and every year we have just put into our planning that we have to expand our rehab program at all of our facilities, just because it's trending that way. And I think it's trending that way not because there's more injured horses that are leaving the track. I just think the sounder ones have more avenues and more connections, and someone can put them on a listing service, or they can put them on social media. Exercise rider can put them on social media, and they can get more exposure, and those horses are finding homes faster. So we're not getting those, which is not a problem, because the horses that really need our service are the ones that are going to need that rehab time, and they need it done properly. So although it's in many ways, you're like, at least our teams and our trainers that work with our horses miss those nicer, beautiful sound guys that come off. And now when we have one, we're like, oh my gosh, we found the unicorn for the year. It's just the way it is, and we've embraced it, and we've just adapted our program to accommodate that and continue to accommodate that. So some of the things that we have done is that every one of our facilities, we have a certain amount of stalls allocated for horses that are going to need rehab, and even within those, we have a certain amount that are going to be allocated for long-term rehabs. And the longer the rehab, the more expensive it is, the more that time the horse is going to stay there and have a stall that maybe another horse could have. So there's all those variables that go into play. And we have found that a couple years ago, we really started focusing on promoting some of our horses that were in rehab for adoption. And we were able to figure out which horses were good prospects for that. Not all injuries are good for that. But we basically sat down with our team and then our vets and said, which ones are really straightforward injuries that we can do all the work early on, all the stall rest, all that. But once the horse is on turnout and it's pretty, straightforward, but it might need another 6 months, can we go ahead and promote for adoption? And so, a lot of those ended up being simple suspensory and soft tissue tendon injuries that once the horse is on full turnout, the adopter shouldn't be able to mess up the rehab program. So putting those horses up, showing trot and hand videos and things like that. So, a horse that might have been with us for a year because of bad tendon could be with us for only 5 months, and that's scenario. So that's really been helpful. We've also had, some of the chip surgeries, removing chips, and once the horse is beyond stall rest and round pen and they're on full turnout, and if they're progressing well, we'll often promote those. And they might have like a maybe training ride type videos, but they're not really being worked. So we found that helps, decrease that length of stay, and also, it could be a horse that would be with us for 6 months, and maybe we cut it in half to 3 months. So that's been helpful. On the financial side, we started several years ago, and this kind of depends on where which state the horse is coming to. So we have facilities here in Lexington, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, and Louisiana, and we do have grants in some of those states that will cover horses with extensive rehab issues and care. But in general, if it's a horse that's not going to fall under one of our grants, we require a donation, and that donation is based off of how long we think that horse is going to be in the program. And again, we've done these long enough that we kind of know if it's going to be 5 months, is it going to be a year? And when we first started doing that, we might have had half the people say, oh no, I'll just find another situation for the horse. But now we're seeing that 90% of people are willing to make a donation to cover that horse's stay. It doesn't have to necessarily cover the whole stay, but obviously it helps out. So in doing that, then we were always able to increase our capacity at all of our facilities because we knew we had the finances to do it. So that has been really helpful. We've also opened up overflow rehab facilities, just knowing that if our current facilities are not able to handle the intake, because it does fluctuate, it's never consistent. I wish I could say because we're dealing with all different racetracks, that it's every October, because that racetrack is always, this happens. And for us, it's like, we think there's a pattern, and as soon as there's a pattern, it changes to a different pattern. So we don't even try to track it, but that having some overflow facilities that are willing to take on, 5 to 10 horses at any given time, then once they, our other facilities get spaces and we can move them in, that's been helpful. And again, if we're able to get a donation with that horse, then that pays for its care at that overflow facility. So that's been helpful too. But again, I think for us, it just has become, it's just integrated into what we do. And every year we look at our numbers, and it's getting higher and higher on the rehab cases. We just did a pilot program with the ASPCA last year. Part of the program was to follow 60 horses that were to come into our program that were said to be sound, didn't need any rehab. And out of those 60, 30 were not sound at the end of the day. So even the ones that are coming in saying that they're going to be completely fine, they're not. So that we're just going to see that trend continue, and we just have to get ahead of it and have plans to be able to take in, the numbers that we need to take in every year.
Thank you, Anna. And Karen, I'm going to ask you to tackle kind of a bit of a downer question, but it's one that all of us deal with. And it's the question of when you have one of these horses that does need significant rehab, and you start trying to figure out what level of comfort and soundness can you get it to? When do you make that decision to euthanize the horse? So can you speak to that a bit for us? And if any of the rest of you have points that you want to weigh in on, please do.
Yeah, I would imagine, we're all talking to the choir here. Any reputable aftercare organization is going to have a euthanasia policy. And owners should really have at least a policy in their head about what they're going to do when it's time to face that decision. And my background before I became director here was in the federal government, and I worked for the National Park Service. We're all about policies. And policies are good because they take away a lot of that emotion and angst about deliberating over a decision. If you've got it written down and it's been, agreed upon by your board and your staff, and it's a guideline. So our euthanasia policy is probably similar to many here. We only euthanize if the horse has a life-threatening illness or condition, or develops a life-threatening illness or condition that makes it more humane to euthanize than to continue, or the horse develops it or comes in with that type of condition, and you can see its quality of life really deteriorating in your care, no matter what you've tried to do. And we placed last year over 100 horses, 120, and I looked back at our statistics over the last like 5 or 6 years, and we euthanize less than 10 horses a year. And we document the cause, and I would say over 50% are due to colic. So, that's pretty standard, I think. And how many of us have been in the situation where we wish it was a colic as opposed to a broken leg, or, some injury or illness that just for whatever reason will not heal. And so it's a very difficult decision. It's not a fun one, but you got to do it. And so the way we do it at our place, and we have a small staff, we only have 10 staff members that are a combo of full-time and part-time. But, when a horse is with us for a while and we can see that that horse is just not getting better, we start to have these little conversations amongst ourselves, pockets of us will start to talk about that. And my goal in general is when we have to make the decision to euthanize, I want everybody to at least be comfortable with that decision. Doesn't mean they necessarily have to agree that this is the time to do it, but at least understand why we're doing it, and that we really have pulled out all the stops necessary to give that horse a chance, and it just for whatever reason is not working out. Sometimes the horses make that decision for you, which is always really nice in many ways. Those horses, I think, are easier. We had one horse that, not a thoroughbred, but he came as an abandoned horse, and for whatever reason, we had him for a few months. He was getting better, but he wasn't thriving at all. He just was kind of puny. And one day, it was a Saturday, we were pretty busy. He starts to completely tank in his stall, and within like a half an hour, we're like, this horse is going to die. And so the vet came out and euthanized the horse, and we sent him away for a necropsy, and he had such a gigantic parasite load, nobody was ever going to be able to help him. Yeah, and so it made us feel better that, not that he died and that we had to euthanize him, but his condition was so far gone, he came in that way, and we tried our best and we weren't able to help him. He's a minority though. Usually these horses that come in that are so bad, we're able to help, and it's, well, Stuart left, but it's because of all the great veterinary partners we have in central Kentucky. They're wonderful people, and they really work closely with us to help make those decisions. And they know that we're going to do everything possible before we come to that decision. And it's not based on money. It's based on the quality of life that the horse either has or is going to have in the future. So we agree as a staff. We agree on a day when we can. And we close our barn to visitors. We close it to volunteers unless they're volunteers that have been with us for a really long time and they know, what's going to happen. And as we all know, horses tell you, I think, when it's time to go. To me, it's their eyes. You can always tell what a horse is feeling when you look deeply into their eyes, and they will tell you that they're done. And even when their body might say they're done, if their eyes aren't done, then we continue treating the horse and we continue trying to make a go of it. But I think their eyes are very expressive, losing weight, distancing themselves from other horses, laying down a lot. They give us lots of indication that it's time to go. And thankfully, I'm always thankful that they do that, because it makes that decision easier. It's not good, but it makes it easier. Always done by a licensed veterinarian, and we always have arrangements ahead of time for removal, and I'm sure everybody has different removal policies or procedures, but we don't bury our horses on our farm. They're all removed by a large animal removal service, and we do that within 24 hours of the horse's euthanasia, so that the horse doesn't lay around for a long time, and generally it's actually the same day. And I found a lot of these removal services are very sensitive about getting there quickly, so the horse doesn't lay around and just sit there or lay there. So it's not a fun decision, and it's always very, very sad, but I feel very comfortable that every time we've had to make this decision, it's been the right one. And while we're sad that we've had to make the decision, we have not been regretful that it was too soon or too late. And there's always that little time time issue. And, you can't really tell people how to make the decision. You will feel it, and you will know that this is the right time. And it really helps to have other people of the same mind around you, so you can, are we doing this too soon? Are we waiting too long? What do you think? And I think our staff as a whole is really good at bouncing our feelings off of each other and then facts off of each other. And that helps make the decision a lot easier.
Yes, please.
Well, we've only had a couple of those, euthanasia for behavioral concerns, and that was primarily for horses that were crashing through fences and could not stay contained. And we're located off of, it's not a 4-lane highway, it's a 2-lane road, but it's very busy. And as with all roads in Kentucky, there are no shoulders. If a horse was ever to get out on that road and cause an accident, that would be terrible for us and for the people that were involved. So we've only had a couple of horses that, for whatever reason, just won't stay in. And I do believe that it's something mental in their makeup. And we've had euthanized just a couple of times for that. Usually it's a medical reason.
Yeah, we've had that issue, not a lot, but probably more than you have. And one particular case, just to use an example, because in our euthanasia policy, if the horse is a danger to itself or others, humans, other horses, it falls into our euthanasia policy. And it's tough because, sometimes there is that fluke accident and they kick and it's like it really is like they're kicking at a fly or something like that. Or you just got in the crossfire. But we had a particular horse that during turnout, our worker was turning him out and the horse kicked him. And the first time he did that, I was like, well, often when you turn horses out, if you're not careful, like they might turn and kick or whatever. Well, when he did it the second time and double barreled and it was our trainer and sent her to the hospital, we said that's it, because it was like one time maybe it's an accident, second time it was intentional, both feet. We had no problems putting that horse down because we wouldn't want to put that horse out to anybody and try to represent it. We've had some other cases where the horses have just been mean and vicious, and we've had to make that call as well. And it is like it's a team decision. Everyone that's working with the horse, the veterinarian that's with it, obviously at the end of the day, your vet's going to be making that decision. And if because they're not going to just euthanize a healthy horse, at least not ours. But it is something that we take very seriously, and it's hard because you want to give them the benefit of the doubt and try to see if you can do the proper training or change their environment and change their setting to see if it helps. But I always say human life is more important than horse life or animal life, and so that's part of what we do too.
I just want to say I agree totally. A human life has to be more important, but also changing. I have that problem with the adopters more than anything. They call, this horse it's not going right. We want to put the horse down. And I'll tell them, please bring that horse back to me, because a lot of times we can change their situation. And I move horses around a lot from farm to farm to farm, not because there's any lacking in the care or the farm, but usually it's just the horse and that situation aren't right. Not just with the adopters, but my farms. I have certain farms that specialize in certain types of horses and all. And I know, like the crazy bad horses, I know I can send them down to Aiken. And if she can't get them working and dealing with them, then we've done our due diligence and they can't get along with the first farm and then that farm, then we know. And I think with the adopters, what worries me the most, this horse is bad. And I probably can't count on my fingers the number of horses that we've brought back and been able to save, because either they said that they were neurological when really they were thin. They said that they were crazy when, even from, I think one story that really sits with me big time, and this woman that had this horse, her husband was a veterinarian and she was a trainer, and she was taking a horse for a young girl. And the horse came through my program through a good trainer, and the horse was good. Went to another person who was a vet, that the horse was a little bit much strong for her for lower level eventing, too much horse. But I knew like the horse was good. Like we had the horse in the program, like probably 9-10 months, and then went and, I mean, the horse came back a wreck. It was crazy. And here it was just a reaction to cocktails. They were trying to give the horse things to calm him down, and it was having an adverse reaction. You wouldn't think that that's coming from 2 veterinarians, but that horse right now is fox hunting, and for the last 3 years, he's been wonderful. And like I said, 10 times I could give you 10 stories like that. So it's just like, what you're saying, like, sometimes it's just changing that environment. And a lot of times, like I said, even with my farms, I'll move horses around. I have my best rehab farm. She gets my worst case horses, the crazy ones, the worst surgeries, all the geldings, all the colts that have to be castrated after rehab, and all the nightmares, and the ones that have to be tied to the wall because they have some sort of spiral fracture. She can deal with most of them and usually doesn't have a problem putting them down, but every once in a while, even the best people get too attached, and she'll call me and she'll say, listen, I understand, and I know the vets are saying we've done what we can do, and it's good. I can't put this horse down. And so we'll pick it up and we'll take it and we'll take another look and put the horse down at one of the other facilities in the same fashion. The vet will come out, put the horse down, take the horse away. I also have a great relationship with Mid-Atlantic, and Mid-Atlantic, Dr. Chima especially, they have so many interns there. So when I have horses that have been hanging around for 9 months and they're kind of iffy and we've done everything for my peace of mind and for my farm, not to deal with what you have to deal with your volunteers and stuff, like when we know it's pretty much done, but we want to just make sure, we'll take those horses to Dr. Chima. And I think there's only been one horse that she said, you know what, I don't want to put this horse down right now. Let's try something. Let's give him a little bit more chance. So I've done that with, North Carolina, I forget the name of their hospital, but I've had some of my horses in North Carolina go to, it's Virginia Tech. She's taken a couple horses for euthanasia studies, and for me and for my farms, especially since most of my farms have lesson programs and trail programs and lots of kids and lots of volunteers, if we have a lingering, horse that just isn't going to stay pasture sound and just is not comfortable, we'd rather stick them in a euthanasia study because it does 2 things. It saves my morale of my farms, and also we're giving back to the community, the scientific community, and these interns that can do, sometimes, these horses don't feel any pain, they get the trink and they get the butte, but if these young students can do a procedure that they need to be that needs to be done on a live horse, that horse spends a day at the clinic, he gets lots of, they send me letters, they give me pets and loves, and that horse has a nice final day with absolutely no pain, and he's put down in a way that benefits everybody. So that's been a great solution for us that just gives you peace of mind, and you've done your due diligence.
That's fantastic. That's ending a downer topic on a high note, so thank you. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming for the Aftercare Summit. We really appreciate it. We're going to draw one more name, and that's going to be the organization that gets half of the ticket sales for today's summit. So again, very official. All right. Cantor PA, Sue Smith. Cantor PA gets half of it. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. We will make sure that this is all available online after. We've been recording it. We've got Matt's handout as well. And if anyone has any questions or wants to get in touch with any of our panelists, let us know. We'll make sure that happens. So thank you very much.